Welcome back. One of the major stories this week was a constitutional court's damning judgment on the National Prosecuting Authority. It ruled that the appointment of Shaun Abrahams as NPA head was invalid and unconstitutional, and also that former President Jacob Zuma abused his powers by pushing for the 2015 exit of the previous NPA head, Mxolisi Nxasana. ENCA reporter Aaron Bates filed this report.
As president, Jacob Zuma was determined to oust then NDPP Mxolisi Nxasana, first in the form of an inquiry, and then with cold hard cash.
Former President Zuma was bent on getting rid of Mr. Nxasana by whatever means he could muster. It should be borne in mind that this entire saga started because former President Zuma overtly made all and sundry believe that he had a basis for holding a view that Mr. Nxasana was no longer Section 32(1)(b) of the NPA
Nxasana left with a golden handshake of over 17 million rand. The Constitutional Court says that deal is invalid. So too, Abrams' appointment.
Former President Zuma appointed Advocate Abrahams following his unlawful removal of Mr. Nxasana. That removal was an abuse of power. Advocate Abrahams is a beneficiary of that abuse of power. It matters not that he may have been unaware of the abuse of power. The rule of law dictates that the office of NDPP be cleansed of all the ills that have plagued it for the past few years. It would therefore not be just and equitable to retain Advocate Abrahams, as this would not vindicate the rule of law.
Nxasana says he's vindicated, but he has to repay over 10 million rand.
It's been very tough because from the time I left office and there was this application, I can tell you it's been very tough. I just hope that when the justices came to their conclusion, they stepped into my shoes as well, because for the whole 3 years, my life has been hanging.
It was his disclosure of those negotiations that really put the lie to the president's defense, that made it clear what abuse had taken place. So there is another person here who has not necessarily had justice meted out to him, and to whom I think the South African public does owe some debt.
Stabilizing the NPA has been high on President Cyril Ramaphosa's agenda since taking office. In a statement, Ramaphosa's own party urges him to act sooner rather than later. Opposition parties are pleased.
I think it's wonderful. It's great news for the criminal justice system. It's great news for the National Prosecuting Authority. It's a great judgment. Abrams needs to go. He's never had the wherewithal to do this job. He still doesn't have it, even though this court didn't make a finding about fit and proper. He demonstrated his inability to do it, and it's wonderful news that he's going. We need to get someone in now who will sweep clean, who won't bow to political pressure.
Abrams has refused comment and referred questions to the NPA's spokesperson.
He is massively disappointed. Remember, his fitness to hold office was not an issue. He was not party to the negotiated settlement. However, he respects the decision of the Apex Court.
Ramaphosa now has 90 days to appoint a new national director of public prosecutions. Aaron Bates, Johannesburg.
President Cyril Ramaphosa appointed Silas Ramaite as acting National Director of Public Prosecutions. He's been one of 4 deputy NDPPs. Ramaite was responsible for administration and the Office for Witness Protection. Before that, he held various positions including public prosecutor, magistrate, senior state advocate and deputy attorney general. In 1997, he was the chief evidence leader at the Goldstone Commission looking into allegations arising from the TRC in relation to the Heidelberg Tavern massacre. Ramaite has been an active member of Lawyers for Human Rights. He's also a licensed financial analyst.
We had different...
Meanwhile, former NPA head Mxolisi Nxasana says he doesn't have the money he's been ordered to pay back. He was the recipient of a golden handshake to vacate his post. In a frank interview with ENCA Sipamandla Goke, Nxasana says he feels betrayed by former President Jacob Zuma. He also hit out at Zuma's former loyal Michael Hali, Justice Minister Michael Masuta, and his predecessor, Jeff Radebe.
Do you still have that money, though? Is it still in your bank account, or you have spent some of it?
I don't have it.
You have spent all of it?
I had to leave. I had to earn a living, my brother. I had liabilities. And remember, when the money came, I didn't steal it. It was paid into my account. I wasn't working.
What are your feelings towards former President Jacob Zuma?
I am where I am today, being the victim of all the circumstances, because of him, because he allowed himself to be threatened or intimidated by people who had their own agendas, to make him institute the Commission of Inquiry, and not only the Commission of Inquiry, to get rid of me.
New Hawks head Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebeya faced the wrath of MPs this week. This over the slow progress of investigations into state capture. It's the first time Lebeya answered questions in Parliament. His team of detectives have their hands full with high-profile crimes that need experienced forensic minds for successful prosecution. Annika Larson reports from Cape Town.
General Lebeya has his work cut out for him. His Hawks team have 8 active state capture investigations on the go, all extremely complex and costing the state about 100 billion rand, from Eskom to Transnet.
The types of corruption mostly commonly experienced are irregularities in procurement, which remains most prevalent form of abuse of power. We are strengthening our working relationship with stakeholders in a multidisciplinary approach.
The problem is dismantling the complex architecture of state capture takes forensic expertise, and so the Hawks are having to outsource their forensic needs to special auditing firms, and it's going to take some time. Meanwhile, MPs are outraged that the Gupta family, who lived here for 20 years, were allowed to get on a plane and leave the country and have still not been extradited.
I don't understand why. Really, I don't understand why. I don't understand really why. These Guptas, we are seeing them making their shows in their country, in India, every day, even, building their own temples in India and making us a laughing stock. Wait! What has happened to the extradition treaty that we have with the Interpol?
As for the matter of Steinhoff, South Africa's largest corporate scandal, it seems it's going to be a long time before there's any criminal prosecution, if any at all. In fact, there's no named suspect as yet.
With regard to this particular matter, because it is at the initial stage, we are not dealing with the identified, although we have got an idea who the possible suspects are. We haven't clearly concluded that this is our suspect, so we are looking broadly at this stage.
Dismantling the architecture of state capture and corporate fraud may take years, and while General Lebeya seems to have the will, he may not have the manpower to get the perpetrators to court. Annika Larson, Parliament.
The Interministerial Committee set up to oversee the administration of the North West's provincial government has told Parliament administrators are being threatened. 5 departments in the North West government are currently under administration. Parliament's been told it could take more than a year to get the province back on its feet. Lester Kivitt has the details.
with 15 billion rand in irregular expenditure and essential services like health and education stalled, the Northwest was on the brink of collapse. 5 provincial departments, including the Premier's office and the Health and Education departments, were placed under administration by the national government, with a team of national ministers put in charge. They've had to report to Parliament regularly on progress, but MPs have heard unsettling allegations that those put in charge of rebuilding provincial departments are now receiving threats.
There has been threats, but that does not mean that it's not accepted. But because you don't, usually such threats are not identified. You get a threat without somebody identifying themselves. So it may, I'm not saying who is threatening in particular, because we don't, if we knew, then we would have already gotten those people arrested.
Dlamini Zuma says administrators will now be given extra security.
We have discussed this matter and we have agreed that the JCPS cluster must provide for security for the administrators and the people who are there intervening.
The ad hoc committee is planning a parliamentary oversight visit to the province to see for themselves just how much progress has been made. Lester Kivet, Parliament.
Moving to parastatals, Transnet CEO Siyabonga Gama and 2 other senior officials have been served with suspension notices. They have until the close of business on Monday to give the board reasons why they shouldn't be suspended. The 2 others in the firing line are Chief Procurement Officer Thamsanqa Jayane and Supply Chain Manager Lindiwe Mdleche. They're accused of violating the Public Finance Management Act for unlawful conduct relating to Transnet's dodgy procurement of more than 1,000 locomotives. The project costs more than 38 billion rand. Gama is also accused of obtaining his MBA degree with help from a Transnet service provider. This issue is also the subject of a state capture investigation by the Hawks. When we return, find out which politician is threatening to take former President Jacob Zuma's crown as the ultimate survivor of no confidence motions.